Okay, Jeff, fascinating conversation on stage about leadership. We touched on various different elements. One of the things that came up, inevitably, I suppose, was this use of AI as a tool, an iterative tool, and you spoke quite eloquently about its role in the design process. Maybe recap a little bit for us about the idea.
I mean, AI is obviously the hot topic. You hear about it everywhere right now. But my team has been experimenting a lot with it, and I really truly believe it is a tool. But when I say it is a tool, an iterative tool, I don't think it's something that's going to replace creativity. But in terms of being able to iterate, come up with ideas faster, it is very good at that. And depending on what you teach the model is what it'll output. And if you really think of what AI is, it's an amalgamation of putting a bunch of different things together and then spitting something out based off of that. So whatever you put in is kind of what you're going to get out. And I don't think it's going to be creative thought, but it is going to be a tool that can accelerate some of our design thinking.
And will that necessarily give us more space for actually more creativity in the long run?
I do believe that, because there's other areas where I just use a simple example where it's like my CMF team. Like the amount of hours they would spend trying to find the right image for a CMF board to create a mood about like what color space they wanted to do. Now they can just put something in there, describe the product. They want to set up binoculars. They want it to be metal. They want it to be green, whatever it is. I'm just making something up. And then an AI image can immediately put that there. So that also just makes the design process of telling a story faster. Yeah. Even when we're doing like UX user journeys, and we want somebody by a campfire, with their truck lights on. It's just like, well, instead of sketching something to illustrate that, to help tell a story to another department, we can create an AI images for that really quickly. And it doesn't really matter because it's just a tool to communicate. So it's not affecting the brand in any way, but it's helping us iterate so we spend more time designing instead of doing some of the remedial tasks.
And I think that's another interesting question, because you spend more time designing, but also you spoke about how it was important to having the space to doodle, having stuff on the wall, because it facilitated the discussion that AI working, focused on a computer screen probably couldn't give you.
I think regardless of tools, AI, Blender, all these digital tools that you're seeing a lot of designers get into, it does it's one of those things where you talk about the doodle, which is something I brought up, is if everything you're looking at the wall is super polished and super finished, it doesn't leave a lot of room for discussion because it's a finished thought. You might say, I don't really like that front end, maybe this fascia needs a little bit more detail, but because the picture's already painted for you, it doesn't leave room for that open discussion. That's where a doodle really comes in. And it's always, I gave the example, is like when you always remember as a designer, you'd have all these beautiful renderings that you spent hours on, and your head of design would focus in on this little doodle that wasn't finished because it allowed that person to sort of imagine what it is. Right. And that invites the conversation, not just with your design leader, but the other designers, because everybody starts to pitch in because they all interpret it differently. Yeah. So not removing that step, I think, is something that is very important because it invites a discussion. And if you go too heavily into something that's finished, it's finished, and you can't really have much.
I mean, it almost feels like it's hermetically sealed,
yes,
and there it is.
It's a finish, exactly. Great way of saying it.
Well, I mean, there's loads more we could talk about, I'm sure, Jeff. But I mean, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Car Design Dialogues Detroit, wonderful to have you, and this is a conversation I feel which will continue. But for now, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. It was fun. Thanks.